Hey everyone, it's Emily from Cottage Remedies. So this video is going to be a little bit of a story time because I decided to dedicate a video to actually explaining what led me to begin studying astrology, what actually made me interested in astrology. Because in my health journey, I described how I became interested in my health, how I became interested in healing myself and studying in alternative medicine, but I haven't actually talked about what was what were the steps to lead me into actually being interested in a topic that today is just not mainstream. I mean, unless you come across it on social media or you read it in the newspaper, I mean, everybody knows some very basic information that they know the zodiac signs, but it's not taught in school, and you don't actually get educated on it. You just get shown enough of astrology for it to be just like basic knowledge, which I did explain in a previous video just a little bit. But my story is actually quite interesting because unlike most astrologers, I can't actually say that growing up or in high school that I had any particular interest in astrology at all. It just was not something that I thought about. I obviously knew my own zodiac sign, I knew my family zodiac signs, but I honestly didn't even really know what they meant either. I just had that very, very basic standard knowledge of it, and if someone asked me, oh, do you believe in zodiac signs? I would say, they're just really generic. I mean, I don't really know, I don't really think about it. That's genuinely probably what I would have said in high school. And it's true because all I knew about astrology back then is what most people, all they know about it is that there's, 12 zodiac signs, and depending on the date that you were born, you're one of those 12 zodiac signs, which is the depth of the knowledge that I had back when I would have just disregarded astrology completely. So, and that is, pretty much on purpose. But the thing is that that's really nothing to do with astrology. That is not how you want to talk about astrology at all. The astrology that I am talking about here and what I actually became interested in, started studying into, has nothing to do with that type of newsletter, entertainment level astrology. Which, if we're not educated about it in school, which is on purpose, to keep this kind of ancient knowledge hidden from us, and we're just given the very basics of it, kind of to make most people, like I did, just think, how can you fit people into one of 12 boxes? And I mean, it's so generic that anybody could read anybody else's if they didn't know what it was, and that's called the Barnum effect, and they'd believe it, which is exactly right, because if you think of it that way, then yeah, it's easy to just disregard and to see it as just entertainment, basically. But so what actually led me to genuinely become interested in astrology was a few steps. I was, studying health. I was still studying health at the time, so it was originally just out of interest. I've always been, not always, but for a long time now, been someone who is a deep researcher, very much a truth seeker, and I'm very interested in mystic topics, philosophy, occultic topics, which are not necessarily evil. Most people like to even pin something like astrology as quote unquote demonic or evil, just because of, I guess, it's really just brainwashing or just ignorance. That's what it is, because the word occult just means hidden. So it's just hidden knowledge is the type of knowledge that I seek. So one of those studies that I was very interested in, which I'm not going to talk too much about because it is very controversial, so if I ever do talk about it, it would be in a video with plenty of context, but I'm going to briefly get into it just here because it's a key component to how I actually got into studying astrology. And that was that I was very interested in decoding the Bible along with many other ancient scriptures. So I haven't, obviously I haven't not read them all from cover to cover, but I've definitely gone through and read quite a lot of passages from a few of these books that I mentioned. So like the Nag Hammadi Library, the Vedas, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, like many different books that are just those ancient scripture books, and of course the Bible as well. I've got a pile of books right next to me in case I needed some props. But you know what a Bible looks like, so I'll just leave that one there. It's heavy anyways. So I was very interested in, well, kind of, because I see them from what I had, uncovered, and to the point where I am now, I see all those books to be strong esoteric books, from like the time of the mystic schools. They are, profound books. They are just beyond what any human today could, or any, author could write. But what they really are, in my opinion, is, allegories, and they are symbolic. They're encoded with a lot of symbolism, and kind of just, filled with parables, metaphors, all these things. So they're not necessarily, that I don't think that they were designed or written and intended to be taken literally. So I just want to stop it there, because I want to put together, if I do talk about this more in depth, I want to put together, a really nice piece of information with a lot of context to bring out something like this, because it's very touchy. But from what I gather, because like I said, it's very important, but these books are very, very, very much based on astrology. All of them, like all of them. Even the Nag Hammadi Library, if you just read it, you will see the Demiurge has its minions. The Demiurge is like the Gnostics' representation of Satan. So they have, in the book, there's the 7 archons, which is just like the Demiurge's demons, I suppose. Now, these 7 archons most likely actually represent the 7 planets. In ancient astrology, the very outer planets, so the generational planets of Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, weren't actually counted for. Supposedly they were only discovered a century ago, or very recently. So in scripture, the reason that we see the number 7 a lot is because there should really, 7 is like God's number. So in numerology, and when you read these ancient texts, you will see 7 come up all the time. And it's not just the 7 planets that it's referring to. It's, the 7 chakras of the body, which, you can say that that's new agey stuff, but it just depends how you actually take that knowledge. We do have energy points. Chakras just mean spinning wheels. So we have these tether points in our body that each resonate on specific frequencies. Now, these 7 chakras are related to the 7 planets, and they're also related to the 7 endocrine glands in our body. So the thing is that there's absolutely, the Hermetic principles are so relevant, specifically the one as above, so below. And that is, has a lot to do with astrology. As above, the 7 planets, so below within ourselves, or as within, so without, we've got the 7 endocrine glands. So everything is connected. And that is when I started to realize, oh my goodness, so if these books are really encoding astrological and astrotheological wisdom and knowledge, then, and if they were written by such advanced beings in the past, like I made a video on how we have come from advanced civilizations, obviously, and not from evolution, from like an amoeba, we're not random. So if these books are from that time, then, and we also do know, like, we know that the ancients built many structures, of course, with geometric symmetry, cathodes to be able to conduct free electricity from the ether. So these structures and these cathedrals and all these ancient buildings were built with advanced knowledge and intelligence that we can't replicate today. So because a lot of these we can tell that they are actually built in alignment with certain constellations. They're built in alignment with particular fixed stars, and in alignment with astrological processes. So clearly they had so much knowledge and they knew about the heavenly bodies above and the process of the massive sky clock, basically. Because of course, I think maybe some people listening would have gathered this by now, but I 100% don't perceive the planets to be physical balls of rocks like far away. If I didn't have, so my perception of this realm and my awakening to the nature of this realm came first. So I knew before I even opened up my awareness to astrology that the planets are actually orbs of light, each resonating at their own frequency, and then the constellations are right above us, and we are living under a firmament, and we are on a stationary level plane. So I knew that before I got into astrology, because if I still believed that Earth was a globe and that you could go land on Mars, you could land on the moon, then I probably wouldn't have really got it as much. Knowing the mystical nature of our realm, and knowing that these stars and the planets and just the way the solar system actually works, and then the layout. So I might make a video on that as well to really show what it all looks like in regards to astrology. That makes it make so much more sense. The other heliocentric model just does not make sense with astrology at all. I'm actually surprised that astrologers today still believe in space. And that's majority of them. That is most of the astrologers today believe in space, but it doesn't even make sense how a physical rock somewhere really far away that you could go land on could energetically be influencing you down here on Earth when supposedly the sun's the center of the universe. That doesn't make any sense at all. So if you still believe that model, then I mean, by all means, like, you probably don't understand astrology either. But if you get that we're living on a geocentric model, Earth is the center of the universe, and everything is about Earth, and Polaris is what's the fixed North Pole star, and the constellations are the zodiac, which is the circle of animals that surrounds Polaris. And I need to make a video so I can use a diagram or something to explain it, because it's just going to be too confusing. But that model basically just makes so much more sense, how these orbs of light in the waters above that are directly above us are then emitting frequencies down to us, and we are in a complete connection with them. That's where it makes so much more sense. So it really helped that I had that knowledge before I actually got to this point in my journey. That opened my mind up to it a lot more, and also my awareness of the spiritual nature of our realm. I always had that, so that's why I didn't have much cognitive dissonance when I came across the true Earth model. It just clicked instantly, and I was like, you know what, that makes so much sense. So I didn't have any issues with that. I know some people do have a lot of cognitive dissonance, and they really hold themselves strong to the spinning globe idea. But basically, I came across that realization that, this is so controversial. I don't even know what's going to happen to me after I post this video. But that the Bible is actually not necessarily a historical recount. It's got obviously some truth of our history in it, but it's not to be taken literally. You're not supposed to be taking it literally as in a snake in the Garden of Eden was talking to the first male and female, you know. So it's all about decoding the astrotheology within the Bible and what it actually really represents, and how it is a very advanced esoteric book that describes and actually portrays symbolic information and knowledge to us through allegories about the processes of astrology in the sky and their relation to our own body and our biochemistry. So the zodiac and the cell salts is a perfect way to describe our connection when it comes to our biochemistry with the zodiac and with the constellations in the sky. Didn't actually bring down a good book about that one, but I did bring another one. So like, this is one example of a book, really briefly, just like the gospel in the zodiac. It's alright, it's pretty good. Like, it goes into explaining the symbology of it all, like when the Bible talks about bread, wheat, barley, harvest, the Virgin, like the Virgin Mary, it's all talking about the constellation Virgo. And another thing is that these archetypes that we talk about with the zodiac, like Leo the lion, Taurus the bull, all of these ones, Gemini the twins, when you look at the actual constellations bare in the sky, they don't look like Leo, for example, does not look like a lion at all. So there had to be some imagination and storytelling that came up to actually associate these archetypes with these constellations, because they don't genuinely look like their archetype. But it's all about, you know, with Leo the lion, Leo, like a lion has always symbolized strength and courage and power, and like, you know, the king, like kingly lion, like king of the jungle, that's what I was trying to think of. So it's always represent that. And then at the time when the sun is in Leo, that is the sun's strongest point of the year on its path of the ecliptic. So that's how they kind of tie together, and that happens for all of them. Virgo symbolizes harvest, because that's the time of the year when you harvest your crops in like the northern hemisphere. So that's what that kind of gets into. But then of course it also relates to our body, and it relates to the processes of our body. So it's just the connection between astrology and our body. So I hope that this is making sense so far, but this is how I really got into it. So I came across this author who is definitely my favorite author. He's no longer alive, but it's Dr. George Washington Carey. And he was, I'd class him as a esoteric biochemist and alchemist. That's probably what I would give him his titles for, but he was a doctor. And he wrote many books. I have them all piled up here. I actually printed these ones though, but these were kind of the catapult into my deep interest in studying astrology and realizing, you know what, this is making sense. So the first one of his that I read was God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. It's probably my favorite book that I've ever read, and I've read it like 3 times now. But it goes into such great depth of decoding the Bible. Specifically, this one's about the Bible, but decoding the Bible and uncovering its astrotheological symbology, and particularly syncretism. It talks about syncretism in this book a lot. So this is just a fantastic book. You know, you learn about all the symbology in the Bible, how Golgotha literally translates to place of the skull. So when you know, Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, then that's talking about the Christ. Jesus like is called Christ, so Christ is Christos, which is the oil, is crucified, which crucify doesn't actually mean to kill, it means to increase by 1,000-fold. So that is happening at the point of the skull, so it's happening in your brain. And I do plan to actually go or make like another video on this and like the holy process of your body specifically. I do plan to do that, so I don't know when that will be, but I will come out with that one. because it's so interesting. Like you hear about all these places, like like Jacob's ladder in the Bible is actually your spine, because Jacob's ladder reaches heaven. Jacob's ladder reaches heaven, and heaven is actually your head. That's the highest point of your body, and God resides at the highest point, which is your head. So God is actually within your brain. Like it's all within. It's like, you know, all the processes of your body. It's not external to you. There's no external savior. The Christ is within you on an energetic level. This is all on an energetic level, but it's also on a physical level, because our body is the Holy Land. And that's why it ties into health, and the importance of your health also has an esoteric note to it as well. Because when you start to actually go down this rabbit hole, you start to realize that you are literally the temple of God. Your body is the Holy Land. It is the holy temple. And so it's like there is no external altar. You are the altar. And so it's respecting your body and actually having reverence to your body as should be. So that is probably another main reason of how I choose to take good care of myself, I suppose. But anyway, so I've got many books here, a couple that he's written. This is one that was about the cell salts, which I was going to talk about. I'll make another video on that. Okay, I don't want to make any false promises here with these videos, but I do imagine that I will get to them at some point. But it's all about the zodiac and the cell salts, because the thing is that there are 12 constellations on the ecliptic in our sky, and then there is 12 throughout our body. So there's the 12 cranial nerves, which is actually the 12, and in the Bible it's the 12 disciples. So in our bodies, the 12 cranial nerves and the 12 cell salts in our body. So we've got 12 main cell salts in our body. They are so important, and they are each connected to the 12 constellations in the sky. So what actually happens is these constellations in the sky that each have their specific resonance and frequency, they materialize in our body, and they actually build and make the structure of our body with these cell salts. And so, you know, these, like George Carey always talked about, you need to have all of these 12 cell salts in abundance in your blood at all time for your body to be at optimal health, because otherwise, you know, how he put it was that disease is a lack of. So you would be lacking one of these 12 cell salts if you notice symptoms and disease in the body. So it's definitely an interesting perspective. So, you know, this book, The Zodiac of the Salts of Salvation, it's got 2 parts. So the relation of the mineral salts of the body to the signs of the zodiac, and an esoteric analysis and synthesis of the zodiacal signs and their physiochemical allocations. So very interesting. I also, you know, I went on to read some, like this is Ptolemy Tetrabiblos, very old. That was written a long time ago, so it was just like, so I got like a bunch of ones in here. I also forgot to mention this. My next step from when I became interested in astrology through this, it was still at the very surface. I hadn't started studying astrology at that point. I wasn't really thinking of, you know, natal charts and reading charts. I was just thinking about the archetypes and astrotheology in an esoteric sense. So that's what I had gone to. But through reading all of Dr. George Carey's books, I became exposed to medical astrology. This is a really good book too, The Wonders of the Human Body. Physical regeneration according to the laws of chemistry and physiology. So that's really good. There's many here. I got distracted again. Okay, anyway, so the next thing that I came and went into was medical astrology. That's what I became really interested in, because obviously I was still studying naturopathy when I was coming across all this. And so that was what really interested me. I was thinking, oh my goodness, so I can really incorporate astrology and medicine, like they're tied together. And I came across quotes from, you know, whether these people actually existed or not, I actually probably don't think so, but I'm going to say anyways, like Socrates, Plato, Hippocrates, you know, all those, you know, ancient philosophers and characters from the past who supposedly said these things, but the quotes that came from them, they all, and also Paracelsus, you know, I read the great works of Paracelsus as well, and I read part of Hippocrates' book, although that says that it was written anonymously, so that's why I'm just so suspicious about these characters. But anyways, in their books, you know, they're talking about astrology, particularly Paracelsus is one. It talks about astrology, talks about medical astrology non-stop, and just the connection that our body has to the stars, and how we are both psychologically and physically under the influence of the stars. They were calling physicians who didn't have knowledge of astrology quacks. That's how they would refer to them. And, you know, there's this one quote by Hippocrates, I try quote it off by heart, but it was, a physician who doesn't have knowledge of astrology has no right to call himself a physician. Because the thing is that when you start to study medical astrology, you realize the influence of the moon and its relation to the blood, and there's good and bad times to have surgery, and you know, we're based off the moment of our birth, we're predisposed to certain ailments based off like the weak areas of our body. And a big part of that is actually because, and this is quite interesting, how in the Bible it says we're all born in sin. If you take that literally, then I guess, you know, we're all born naughty, but it's not to be taken literally. It actually means that we, like, the word sin translates to fall short of or to miss the mark. And we're only in the womb for 9 months out of 12 months in a year. And so what this is really saying is that because we're only in the womb for 9 months, we only get 9 of the vital cell salts from our mother. So we're missing 3 important cell salts, which come from, it's because through the time that the sun is going through the constellations, and we're only in the womb for 9 months, the sun hasn't reached those final constellations of the 12-month full cycle. So that's why we're born in sin, and we're kind of born in a lack. And so we are most at risk of developing disease in the area of those cell salts that we're missing. So it gets pretty in depth with that, and you know, you can, but then astrology is medical astrology is a whole different level to astrology. So I became aware of that, and I definitely read a few books on medical astrology. This is one, like this is old, this is like price 1 shilling net, like this is from a long time ago, but I tend to gravitate towards older books than newer ones. And so I did read up on medical astrology quite a bit, but then how it all came to fruition and what I'm getting to here, sorry this is taking a long time, I did kind of want to just make it, to go in depth a little bit, to give you a little bit of understanding about how someone who grew up and didn't really know anything about astrology and didn't really care about it, to be honest, actually became so interested in it, started studying it, and actually practices astrology today. So how can that happen? Because personally, I can relate to people who don't get it or who are skeptical about it. And if you have very basic knowledge of astrology, then I don't blame you. Like, it makes sense. I was skeptical of it as well, based off the little that I knew about it. But as soon as I opened my mind to it and actually started taking initiative to start researching it myself and start even, you know, looking into my own chart more in depth, that's when I started to realize, you know, this is making a lot more sense, and I see how this could definitely be the case. But it was most it was mostly, for me, the realization came through studying the works of the ancients and looking to ancient civilizations, and going down that rabbit hole was what woke me up to it the most. Because I do know that they were definitely, more advanced than we are today. And so when we can see that, there's so many hieroglyphs on the Egyptian temples from the past, and you can see the 12 archetypes on the walls of these ancient Egyptian temples, and just the symbology, it's all relating to the stars and astrology. So clearly they lived in accordance to the stars, or they just had some really great in-depth knowledge about it, enough to write multiple ancient scriptures based off it and the importance of this process of our body. It's talking about the holy process, and also, the sun's journey, the sun being like also the Jesus character in Christ. Sorry, people. Sorry to in case that kind of hurts people's feelings in some way, but why I kind of, okay, I'm gonna get back on track a little bit. I decided to study astrology before going as in depth into medical astrology, just because medical astrology is read in a different way to astrology. And so I think this would be like for anybody, you would want to know astrology really well before you go to learn medical astrology, because they're just very different. So that's what I did, and I went ahead and I studied astrology. I studied sidereal astrology straight away. I never actually studied tropical astrology because, like I said, I'm a truth seeker. So when I realized that, okay, the ancients follow the stars, astrology means study of the stars, and it just makes so much sense that you would look to the actual heavenly bodies where they are currently in the sky, and that's the influence that's going on, because all we're trying to do is read what is going on in the sky, not read what's going on a piece of paper or based off dates that someone made up, which is partly what tropical astrology is, just because tropical astrology is just based on the fixed seasons of the year, the 4 seasons of the year. But that's outdated now, because when it was in 0 AD, when the constellations in the sky lined up exactly with the 4 seasons of the year. And so one system, like that's how tropical system came about. Western astrology just stuck to that, but that system keeps it the same no matter how progressed time goes on, right? But the thing is that there is the precession of the equinox, and that happens at a rate of 1 degree every 72 years, which is slow, but it still happens. And so since it's been 2023 years since, the constellations have shifted since then. And so it doesn't align at all. If you were to, search up your tropical astrology chart and then compare it with an astronomy program that looks at the sky, then you'll see it doesn't even line up and it doesn't match. So that's why I was like, okay, well, sidereal astrology. I went a level deeper as well, because Eastern astrology or Vedic astrology uses sidereal astrology, but the difference is that they're making the constellations equally 30 degrees, but that doesn't reflect the sky. So it's just a nightmare out there. So that's going to be butchering their chart anyways. And it's also because of the way it's shaped, so it kind of has to be 30 degrees, but it doesn't reflect the sky. I'll do another video comparing these as well, because it might be interesting to some people. I've got a lineup on this content coming up, so stay tuned. So yeah, my method of it could be called true sidereal astrology, which is using the exact degrees of the constellations in the sky, which is giving you the most accurate reading, which is how it should be done, because the the chart that you develop should just be a reflection of the sky. You know, you don't want to be making things up or repositioning things, changing the sizes of the constellations, because then what's the point? It's not accurate. The whole point of it is to make it as accurate as possible and make it as though you are genuinely just reading the sky as it is, because this is where the heavenly bodies are placed. Anyways, so I studied that one-on-one with a very reputable sidereal astrologer, and that was brilliant. I've read plenty of books and everything, so I have a lot of experience so far in astrology to this point. This is my story time, so we're going back quite a while now. And when it comes to medical astrology, I am very excited to be studying that, but the only readings that I'm offering at the moment are just astrology readings, so natal chart, transit chart, synastry chart, just astrology readings basically. But I do definitely plan to, in the future, offer medical astrology as a service. But yeah, so I hope that was comprehensive enough on my whole journey into actually becoming interested in astrology. I had in the past developed my tropical astrology chart once, and back then I didn't know how to read astrology, obviously, because I was like in high school. So I think it was on Cafe Astrology, and I just read the transcript that comes up with it, and that was when I was thinking, you know, kind of interested in maybe. But then when I read the transcript, I was thinking, well, it doesn't actually relate to me at all. I don't even feel like it resonates. And so that kind of chucked astrology in the bin for me, which is, I think, it works. It's a very good defense system to keep people from actually studying astrology or becoming interested in astrology. Because for me, I just disregarded it again because I was thinking, this doesn't actually sound that much like me. And that's because it was my tropical astrology chart. But then after that, when I was to this stage where I was becoming very interested in it, I was very curious about it. And I, of course, now have like read my own sidereal astrology chart like inside out. I realized how accurate it is. It is so accurate. And I get this confirmation all the time when I do readings for people, and people are just blown away at how accurate the reading is. And it just confirms how true astrology is, and how it is definitely, this knowledge is being hidden from us 1000%. But yeah, I've definitely talked enough so far, so I'm going to end it here. If you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to follow along with my other videos that I post, then please subscribe.